from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on AgDay, kicking off crop tour in solar eclipse style. Marching through fields, scouts ground truth USDA's yield estimates in both Ohio and South Dakota.
Ohio fields look variable this year. We'll tell you what scouts are finding coming up.
And some variability continues in South Dakota, but the crops may have more moisture than you think. I'm Betsy Gibbon. I'll have that story ahead on the show.
One southern state boasts a double-digit move in milk production and a celestial showcase.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan. Clinton Griffiths is on the Farm Journal Midwest Crop Tour. I'll be out there later this week as our partners at Pro Farmer analyze the potential for the 2017 crop size.
Coverage of the 2017 Farm Journal Midwest Crop Tour is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer, with you from the word go.
Now later this morning, more than 100 scouts will begin the day 2 of the crop tour, which is now in its 25th year. Over the next 3 days, scouts will travel 7 Midwest states, collecting more than 1,400 field samples from corn and soybean fields. These states represent about 70% of the nation's planted corn acreage. On Monday, scouts in the Eastern Corn Belt surveyed fields in western Ohio and east central Indiana, an area that largely suffered from too much rain this spring. Clinton Griffiths is on that stretch of the tour. Clinton?
Tyne, I would characterize Ohio like much of the Corn Belt this year. It's variable. Some fields look great, others look tough. The question is, can Ohio be just average? After the way the planting season started, for some farmers, that's good enough.
Considering the battle that we had early in the season, it looks fairly good. I mean, all things considered, really.
For Josh Yoder in Union County, Ohio, these fields may not be perfect, but that's okay.
We planted at the end of April, turned off cold and got some rainy weather, and we just did not get the germination that we were looking for.
And we've seen that within the fields. As a result, it not only leads to yield variability coming out when we do our yield calculations in the cornfields, but it leads to variability in terms of maturity within the field.
Thankfully, the second half of the growing season has been better.
This has been the best part of the growing season in terms of helping us to catch up from the damage that was done early in the season.
And USDA seems to agree. In its August crop production report, USDA expected Ohio corn yields to average 171 bushels to the acre, quite a bit better than last year's 159.
So far, it's behind. A lot of late planted corn. Yeah. We ran into some corn that the silks haven't even browned off. It was still pollinating. We had to go find another cornfield to get a yield check.
Given all those conditions, some better than expected yields, you know, in the 160s to 180s on some of those. So
soybean production is forecast lower at 53 bushels to the acre. Last year it was 54.
And you look over the fields and they don't look like green carpet. You can see some undulations and stuff like that. Just signs that there were some struggles early on.
For Josh, finishing strong is about out of his hands. Now he's prepping for a busy September.
I will be getting married in the first week of September. Yeah, you kind of have to plan that before you get back into the field.
Putting his yields at +1, regardless of the weather. One other interesting thing about this year's 25th anniversary crop tour, there's a record number of scouts, nearly 150, out scattered across the Corn Belt gathering data.
Thanks, Clinton. Meanwhile, in the western Corn Belt, scouts will spend their day today in Nebraska fields. On Monday, they started their tour in southeast South Dakota. That corner of the state is in moderate drought. Overall, just 10% of the state categorized as drought-free. But look at the dryness compared to a year ago. While it's improved, South Dakota farmers still saw some issues last year, especially in the western part of the state. But this is what conditions look like about 120 miles northwest of Sioux Falls. Ryan Thompson snapped this picture of his cornfield in Gerald County. It looked like the tops were just cut off like seed corn production. And he says it's not too hard to do the math on this field. Well, while South Dakota has been struggling with dry conditions throughout the growing season, Betsy Gibbon traveled a route which has enough moisture. Betsy?
These look like legit ears by the time they're harvested.
This growing season is presenting its challenges for Lincoln County, South Dakota farmer Brad Smith.
I think it was getting mid-June by the time we finally got done, maybe even more towards the 20th of June.
But the challenge may not be what you think. The U.S. Drought Monitor shows majority of South Dakota is in a drought. Nearly 3/4 of the state is in a moderate drought and almost half in severe. But a pocket in the southeastern part of the state is too wet.
Excessive rainfall, which is definitely different than the majority of South Dakota.
And it's been that way most of the season.
It's odd. It's really odd to have that much of a swing in the same state.
You don't have to go too far west to see the stress, but the scouts on this route stayed mostly east of the drought-stricken areas.
It's a typical South Dakota crop is what we've seen so far. Corn, we're seeing some yields that are suggesting that what we've seen on just a few stops in that 140, 150 bushel, some under, some above.
Flory says the crop is behind in maturity, but he's not too concerned.
There's some variability from field to field, no question about it. The variability on the maturity, though, is it's not that variable. We're seeing a corn crop that's pretty much at the same stage so far.
The soybeans have a lot of pods, but some of them are flat and need those August rains.
We're not seeing a lot of fill on the beans right now, and while there is some moisture out there available for the beans, it's going to need another rain to go ahead and finish strong.
So I was really glad that I planted as heavy as I did.
Back in Smith's area, he hopes that variability will even out.
You know, once you get in the combine, that's what's going to be the secret, is how much is been drowned out, how much has been set back from too much water, and what moisture levels you're going to run into as you're harvesting through the field.
He's thankful he has a good crop this year, but hopes an early frost won't damage it.
We still can't have an early frost. An early frost would absolutely kill us at this point.
Reporting in South Dakota, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Thanks, Betsy. Well, we talked with USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey about the drought conditions in the northern plains. And as Betsy mentions, there have been some decent rains in parts of South Dakota over the past 2 weeks, but Montana continues to miss out. Rippey calls the state a dry island.
There are places in Montana that have had little or no rainfall now for a couple of months, and we just have not seen any relief whatsoever. We've got a wildfire danger there. Obviously, anything that happens at this point is too late for spring-sown small grains.
Those recent rains in South Dakota proving to be good news for crops. USDA's latest crop progress report showing both corn and soybean condition ratings in South Dakota jumped up 8 points in just a week. Now both crops rated 42% good to excellent. And in Nebraska, USDA leaving corn and beans unchanged at 63% good to excellent for corn and 61% good to excellent for soybeans in the state. Now moving to the east on Clinton's route, Ohio's corn rating moving up 2 points to 62% good to excellent, beans falling a point to 54. And Indiana's corn ratings falling 2 points to 53% good to excellent, while the state's bean rating fell 3 points. And looking nationally, USDA leaving corn ratings the same as last week at 62% good to excellent, beans up a point to 60%. We continue our Farm Journal Crop Tour coverage as scouts ground truth yields. Many are sharing what they're seeing on Twitter. Mike Hoffman has some views from the field to share in this morning's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Thanks, Tyne. It's not only scouting for yields that's key this year, but also looking at the maturity of the crop. Matt Bennett is a scout on the western leg of the tour. He says just as he entered Nebraska, they stopped by this field. It looks like the field not only had pollination issues this year, but the crop is very far behind. He questions if it'll even make it to the black layer stage this year. And Chip Nellinger made a stop in Kalida, Ohio. He saw a variation of maturity in the same field with very uneven emergence. Despite that, the yield estimate on that particular field came in at around 176 bushels per acre. And taking a look at the weather map this morning, you can see showers and thunderstorms from the Great Lakes into the Central Plains. That's the only real system on our weather map. We'll have your forecast coming up. But first, here are some solar-focused hometown temps.
Visit FarmJournalPro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. FarmJournalPro.com.
Still to come, if crop prices can't find the momentum to climb in the next month, what should you do with the old crop sitting in the bin? That's analysis. And booming milk production in the U.S. with producers hitting a new record. But which southern state saw a double-digit gain? That's our dairy report. Plus, if the clouds impaired your view for the total solar eclipse, don't worry, we'll give you a front row seat later in the show. Here now with Bob Utterback of Utterback Marketing. Bob, looking at these grain prices right now, not a pretty sight, especially for those farmers who still have old crop corn that's unsold. So for those farmers that still have that in the bin, what's your advice?
Two things. One, you're at a time period now we're coming into the pre-harvest lows. South America crop is big. I think there's going to be a lot of weight on this market for the next 60 to 90 days. I do think there's hope in reference to the corn market with the September report, but you got to get yourself clear to the January time period. So if you got old crop in the bin, you got to make a hard decision. Do you mix it with your new crop corn, which I don't like it, which means you got to dump it, and do you re-own it on paper, which is a tough decision, but I think that's the only option you got right to this point if you want recovery in the price.
And there's some farmers that maybe have to get rid of it because they need room in the bins. And so when you say re-own it on paper, what do you mean?
I'm saying you either got to buy the futures. My preference is to buy an in-the-money call so I can adjust if the market breaks. I think if you buy the December corn here at 60, 65, your worst case risk is 30 cents down. Your best case is 40 cents up. And you only get the 40 cents up if I confirm USDA yield goes from 169 to 164. So to be positive, you got to prove that USDA has been wrong in their yield estimates, which I think will confirm that before it's all over.
What if they're in an area that just does not have good basis right now? Anything you could do in that scenario?
It's difficult. This is where you remember how bad this feels and how helpless you feel right now. And this is where guys feel helpless. This is why you need to be more aggressive in the April, May, June, July time period to sell when the market is giving you opportunity, so you're not forced into this, I've just got to take what they give it to. I know some people are looking at DP contracts where they deliver against it and price it later. I call it a poor man's long, but the problem is the basis could stay wide and you end up the market a flat price rally and you don't make anything. So I think you got to make it clean, sell it, re-own on paper, or store it and sell the carry. Go out there and sell the deferred carry and pay yourself 3 cents a month for at least the next several months to hold corn.
All right, thanks, Bob. We appreciate it. Bob Utterback with Utterback Marketing. Please stay with us. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a moment.
To talk with Bob one-on-one, call Utterback Marketing Services, toll free at 800-832-1488.
Welcome back. Well, Mike, we stepped outside the studios to check out the solar eclipse, and we weren't in the totality of it, but just to see the partial eclipse was amazing.
It was.
Oh,
it really was.
Breathtaking. And then my dad had texted me, and back home near Kansas City, he got to see the totality of it. He said, in 2024, you need to make sure to go see it.
Right.
It was simply amazing.
Because it's going to be in a little bit different part of the country. Although I guess Carbondale, Illinois is in it again. Totally
double whammy.
Path.
They'll be prepared for the traffic next time.
Yeah, I understand about that. Here's the weather map this morning, and you can see some showers and thunderstorms along a cold front moving through the Midwest. Otherwise, high pressure dominating the southern portions of the country. This is pretty muggy air down here, but this is much cooler air once again moving into the upper Midwest, especially the Dakotas into Minnesota. Showers and thunderstorms close to the area of low pressure in the northeastern portions of the Great Lakes. As we put the maps into motion, you'll see this front will continue to press southeastward, pretty far south for this time of the year, but we've had several of those cold fronts so far over the past couple of months. Weak little system kind of diving in behind this first area of high pressure will give a few areas of showers and thunder showers, but that won't amount to too much. So you can see as we head through tonight, showers and storms continue to progress eastward to the east coast, although they'll be just hit and miss by morning, as that is typical that time of the day. Kind of stalls out, the front does anyway, across parts of Oklahoma and Texas, and as we head into the day tomorrow, we'll see showers and thunderstorms once again bubbling up in the the more humid air south of that front, especially as you can see throughout the Gulf Coast region basically, and then just the hit and miss variety typical for this time of the year in much of the west. There's a precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours. We've seen some decent amounts in some of those complexes of thunderstorms. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see how we kind of put scattered amounts on toward the southeast into the southeastern portions of the country. Very little precipitation obviously out west and especially in the northwest. Temperatures this afternoon cooler behind that front. Highs in the 60s and 70s in the Great Lakes, 80s Ohio Valley, 90s farther south. Low temperatures tonight going to really drop off in the northern plains. Lots of 50s all the way down into the central plains actually. And by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon, the heat gets shoved all the way down to the Gulf Coast region. Lots of 70s, even some 60s in the northern portions of the Corn Belt. There's the trough. Digging in once again. This is the pattern that we saw for a month and a half, and you can see it tries to kind of go zonal, but it still kind of looks troughy in the east with a big ridge out west. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading out to Burns, Oregon, first of all, good deal of sunshine and hot today, high of 92. These are all places that saw the eclipse yesterday. Jefferson City, Missouri, variably cloudy, shower or thunderstorm likely, high of 82. And Columbia, South Carolina, partly sunny, a thunderstorm in some areas, high 93.
Still to come, which state saw a double-digit climb in July milk production? That's our dairy report. Plus, a thin line in rural America had one of the best interrupted seats in the house for the solar eclipse. But if Mother Nature ruined your view, we'll give you a glimpse as we head in the country.
Join Market Rally host Chip Flory live from the Rabo AgriFinance booth at this year's Farm Progress Show, August 29th through the 31st.
Round one of NAFTA negotiations are in the books, and officials from all three countries say the goal remains the same, ensuring negotiations remain on a rapid pace. Round one wrapped up on Sunday with leaders saying they are, quote, committed to an accelerated and comprehensive negotiation process. The rush is over, leaders striving to finalize a new deal before Mexico's national election campaign kicks off in early 2018. Now, the schedule for additional rounds of NAFTA talks are already lined up, with trade officials now heading to Mexico for the second round of talks scheduled for September 1st through the 5th. The third round of negotiations is then scheduled for Canada in late September, and officials plan to reconvene in the U.S. in early October. Well, dairy is a major sticking point for both the U.S. and Canada in NAFTA negotiations. And a new production report shows the dairy sector needs more demand to offset a boom in production. The U.S. Department of Agriculture showing milk production hit a record high in July at 18.2 billion pounds. That's up 1.8% from a year ago. California continues to lead the herd, with production hitting 3.37 billion pounds, but that is lower than a year ago. Texas seeing the greatest year-over-year climb, with production jumping 14.8% over last year at just over 1 billion pounds. Still to come, a front row seat for the solar eclipse you won't want to miss.
DuPont Pioneer is auctioning off a Timty Super Hopper grain trailer, and all proceeds benefit the FFA. Register to bid at pioneer.com/chrome. That's pioneer.com/QROME.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. See the hardest working tractors in ag at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Well, it was a sight to see. Americans with telescopes, cameras, and protective glasses staked out viewing spots Monday to watch the moon blot out the midday sun. The Great American Solar Eclipse was one of the most observed and photographed eclipses in history. While everyone on the continental United States could see a partial eclipse, only people in a 70-mile wide path from Oregon to South Carolina could see the celestial show in its totality. Of course, you had to worry about cloud cover in some areas. Even folks on the Farm Journal Midwest Crop Tour took a moment to enjoy the show. This was the first total solar eclipse to sweep coast to coast across the U.S. in 99 years. Now, if you missed this show, your next chance for the American eclipse will be in 2024. The path of that eclipse will go from Texas to New England.
It kind of gave me an eerie feeling, you know, it was kind of weird because it went dark and you could just, I don't know, it was weird.
That's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For Clinton, Betsy, and Mike Hoffman, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great week in Farm Country.
AgDay is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.